Mitchell spent 6 weeks researching before he ever set foot in a dealership. He pulled pricing reports, compared trim levels, even called two different dealers to get competing quotes. By the time he walked in, he knew the manufacturer's invoice down to the dollar. He negotiated for almost 2 hours, back and forth, the whole routine. And when the dust settled, he got the price down to just $75 above invoice. The salesman shook his head and told him they were practically giving the car away. Mitchell drove home, convinced he'd outsmarted the entire system. He didn't. The dealership cleared over $3,500 on that deal, and Mitchell never saw a cent of it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. His neighbor Jordan noticed the new car sitting in the driveway that weekend. Walked over, asked about it, loved everything he heard. The following Saturday, Jordan drove to the exact same dealership and asked for the exact same model. Jordan paid $2,600 more than Mitchell. Same car, same lot, same month. The difference wasn't the vehicle. It was 5 words. Jordan said the moment he sat down, there are 14 hidden profit layers baked into every single car sale. Most people don't know about any of them. But the one that bleeds you the most isn't even on the showroom floor. It's in a small office you walk into after you think the hard part is already done. I ran the math on all 14. Here's what came back. Mitchell wasn't some impulse buyer. He'd been planning this purchase for months. He found the manufacturer's invoice online, cross-checked it against 3 different pricing tools, and walked in armed with more data than most salespeople expect. The window sticker on the car he wanted read $34,800. The manufacturer's invoice, the price the factory charges the dealership, came in at $31,450. Mitchell ground the salesman down to $31,525. That's $75 above invoice. The salesman leaned back, sighed, and told him they were losing money just to move metal off the lot. Mitchell believed every word. And look, if the only profit layer was the obvious one, the gap between what you pay and the invoice number, he would have been right. $75 in gross margin is basically nothing. But that's the whole trick. That $75 is the only layer you're supposed to see. It sits right on the surface where you can find it. Underneath, there are 13 more layers, completely invisible, all wired into the structure of every car transaction. Here's the first one most people miss. The manufacturer's invoice is not the dealership's actual cost. The real cost is lower, sometimes significantly lower, and that's because of private financial arrangements between the automaker and the dealer that never show up on any consumer-facing report. Not on pricing guides, not on comparison sites, not on any of those tools Mitchell used. None of them. The first hidden payment is called a dealer holdback, after the sale closes. The manufacturer sends money back to the dealership, usually 2 to 3% of the full list price, on Mitchell's car with a $34,800 sticker. A 2% holdback means the manufacturer wired the dealership an extra $696 after the deal. At 3%, that jumps to $1,044. So Mitchell thinks the dealer scraped by on $75. In reality, the holdback alone put them at 9 to 14 times that amount. And honestly, we're barely scratching the surface. Next up is something called a dealer cash incentive. If the automaker overbuilt a certain model and needs to clear inventory, they'll pay the dealership a flat bonus to push that specific car over others on the lot. You'd never know if the car you're looking at has one of these attached. There's no sticker for it, no line item, anywhere. Then there's the volume bonus, sometimes called a stair-step program. The more units a dealership moves in a given period, the bigger the payout per car. Hit a certain tier, and suddenly every vehicle sold that quarter earns an extra kickback. This is why dealerships get weirdly flexible in the last week of the month and the final days of a quarter. They're not being generous. They're chasing a volume threshold that could be worth tens of thousands of dollars across their entire inventory. After that, there's a regional dealer-only rebate. If a specific market is underperforming, too much local competition, sluggish economy, whatever, the manufacturer steps in and hands dealerships in that area an additional incentive to move cars. You'd have zero way of knowing this exists unless you worked behind the counter. And finally, on the front end, there's floor plan assistance. When a dealership takes delivery of a car from the factory, they finance it. That financing has interest. Floor plan assistance means the manufacturer helps cover some or all of that interest cost. It's another hidden subsidy that pushes the dealership's true cost well below the invoice number. There's one more bucket worth mentioning: back-end incentive programs. These are payments tied to customer satisfaction scores, brand compliance metrics, service quality benchmarks. They're not linked to individual sales directly, but they're another stream of cash flowing from manufacturer to dealer. Now, here's the part that makes all of this almost irrelevant. Even if you could somehow calculate the exact value of every one of these hidden layers and throw it on the table during your negotiation, that's still not where the real money changes hands. The real money is made in a room you haven't entered yet. Before we go into that room, let me ground this in actual data, not estimates, not guesses. Real financial disclosures that anyone with an internet connection can pull up. Some car dealerships aren't mom and pop shops. They're publicly traded corporations running hundreds of locations across the country because they answer to shareholders. They're required to file detailed financial statements that show exactly where the money comes from, and those filings tell a very clear story: the average gross profit on a new car. That's the difference between what you pay and the manufacturer's invoice. Comes in around $3,400. On a used car, it's roughly $2,900. Gross profit is useful, but it's not the whole picture. The dealership still has to cover rent, payroll, utilities, lot maintenance, all those overhead costs that accountants lump under selling, general, and administrative expenses. Once you subtract all of that, the actual net profit per vehicle drops to somewhere between $500 and $1,300, depending on which filings you read. That's the number that makes Mitchell feel like a genius. He negotiated to $75 above invoice. The average buyer is paying over $3,000 above invoice. Mitchell is thousands ahead of the curve, at least on the sales floor. But the sales floor is not where the big money lives. The dealership isn't finished with Mitchell, not even close. Mitchell thinks the negotiation is over. Price is locked, handshake done. He gets walked down a hallway into a smaller, quieter office to handle the paperwork. This room right here is the most profitable square footage in the entire building, and almost every single buyer walks in with their guard completely down. Think of it like the checkout aisle at a grocery store. You've already done your shopping, you've compared prices, stuck to your list, maybe even used coupons. You feel good about what you spent. Then you're standing in line surrounded by candy bars, magazines, gum, batteries, all of it positioned right where your eyes land while you wait. None of it was on your list, but a few small items end up in the cart anyway. Now multiply that impulse by 1,000 and attach it to a $30,000 purchase. That's the finance manager's office. The person behind that desk is called the finance manager, but don't let the title fool you. They're not a clerk processing forms. They are the highest paid salesperson in the building. There's a reason they sit in that back office instead of walking the lot. That's where the biggest margins are. From those same public financial disclosures, here's what dealerships pull in from that office alone: somewhere between $2,200 and $3,000 per car, on top of whatever they made selling you the vehicle. Let's break down where that money comes from. First, the loan reserve. When you finance a car, the interest rate you're quoted isn't just what the lender requires. The dealership marks it up if the lender approves you at 4%. The dealership might tell you 5. That extra 1% is called the loan reserve, and it's pure profit. Across their full sales volume, that markup averages out to $650 to $850 per car. Next, the extended warranty. This is where they slide a glossy brochure across the desk with a long list of everything that's covered. Sounds comprehensive. What they don't draw your attention to is what's excluded. The profit margin on extended warranties runs between $750 and $1,100. That's markup, not value. Then there's gap insurance. Here's the thing. This one actually makes sense to understand. If you finance a car and it gets totaled, your insurance company pays what the car is currently worth, not what you still owe on the loan. If the loan balance is higher than the car's market value, you're stuck covering that difference out of your own pocket. Gap insurance closes that gap. It's not a terrible product if you're carrying a loan, but the profit margin baked into it runs $250 to $450. After that, there are the smaller add-ons: wheel protection, paint sealant, interior fabric coating, premium floor mats. Each one carries anywhere from $50 to $350 in profit. They feel minor, they're not. They add up fast. Total profit from the finance manager's office on products alone: roughly $2,000 to $2,300 per car. But the finance office isn't done with you yet. There's still the paperwork. Every car sale generates a stack of documents. And buried in that stack is another $750 to $850 in profit. The processing fee, sometimes called a documentation fee. That's what they charge you for typing your info into their system and printing out forms for you to sign. Profit on that alone, $450 to $700. Electronic filing and registration markup. They handle your vehicle registration and tack on a surcharge. $45 to $100 in profit on top of the actual government fee, the temporary tag, that paper you tape to your window until your plates show up. $25 to $55 in profit. Digital contracting and notary, another $15 to $35. None of these feel huge by themselves. But combine them, and the paperwork alone generates $750,000 in pure margin per vehicle. Now add it all up. Product profit plus documentation profit. The finance manager's office pulls in somewhere between $2,800 and $3,100 per car, and that's before the most profitable division of any dealership, the service center, which is a whole separate conversation. So let's put Mitchell's full picture together. He ground the price down to $75 above invoice. He felt great. But the dealership collected $700 to $1,050 in holdback, potentially hundreds more in other front-end incentives, and then $2,800 to $3,100 in the finance office, on a deal where the salesman told him they were losing money. That's the machine, and it processed Mitchell exactly the way it was engineered to. Now let's talk about Jordan. Same dealership, same car, same month. But Jordan walked in and said 5 words that changed everything. I'm paying cash, best price. He thought that was leverage. Cash on the table, no games. No middlemen, straight deal. But here's what the dealership actually heard. I'm about to wipe out $2,200 to $3,000 of profit from your finance office. No loan reserve, no interest markup, no gap insurance upsell, no extended warranty pitch. The entire finance and insurance profit layer, the most lucrative part of the whole transaction, just evaporated. So the dealership did the only rational thing. It clawed back the difference on the sticker price. Jordan got less flexibility in the negotiation. The dealer held firmer, and Jordan paid $2,600 more for the exact same car. I call this the financing paradox. We're all trained to believe cash is king, and in most situations, it is. You pay cash for a kitchen remodel, the contractor knocks something off. You pay cash at a local shop, they might give you a break. Cash means no processing delays, no chargebacks, no risk. But a car dealership is not a contractor. At a dealership, financing isn't a cost, it's a product. The loan is a profit center. When you take that away, you're not simplifying the deal. You're ripping out their most valuable revenue stream, and they will make you pay for it. Literally. Here's a detail that confirms the whole thing. You know how the finance office charges fees for everything? Processing fees, registration markups, notary charges. The one fee most dealerships do not charge is a loan origination fee. Why? Because they want you to finance through them. The money isn't in the upfront fee. It's in the monthly payments and every product attached to them. Now, some people hear this and think, fine, I just won't mention I'm paying cash. Keep them guessing. Good instinct, but the dealership is already ahead of you. They've got a series of checkpoints built into the buying process, specifically designed to figure out whether you're a cash buyer. And most people don't even realize they're being sorted. Checkpoint 1 happens before you meet a salesperson. You walk in, someone at the front hands you a form, name, address, vehicle you're interested in, whether you want to pay cash or finance, whether you've got a trade-in. It feels like a formality. It's a filter. Checkpoint 2 comes about 2/3 of the way through the process. They tell you they need to pull your credit to make sure you qualify. Sounds routine, right? They're not really checking your creditworthiness at that point. They're confirming you still plan to finance. It's a commitment test dressed up as a procedural step. Checkpoint 3, the salesperson fills out your loan application before you even step into the finance manager's office. By now, you've confirmed your intent to finance 2 or 3 times without even noticing. If you write "not sure" on that first form, the whole dynamic shifts. But the further you get without committing to financing, the tighter the dealership grips the price. Your room to negotiate shrinks at every stage. So here's the question. If paying cash costs more and the dealership is testing you at every turn, what do you actually do? The strategy is simpler than you'd think. Step 1. Walk in as a financing buyer. Don't bring up cash at any point. This keeps you tagged as a high-margin customer, and that tag gives you maximum leverage on every single line item. Step 2. At the form stage, ask one specific question. What's the loan origination fee? They'll assume you're shopping their loan terms against your bank or credit union. What you're really doing is confirming there's no upfront cost you'd lose by paying the loan off early. Step 3. Negotiate the purchase price as aggressively as you can. The dealership will bend more than they would for a cash buyer because they expect to recover the margin in the back office. Use that expectation against them. Step 4. Once you're in the finance office, Negotiate the products, you now know the margins. Extended warranty, they're pocketing $750 to $1,100 on it. That's negotiable. Gap insurance, $250 to $450 in profit, also negotiable. You don't have to say yes to everything they put in front of you. And the stuff you actually want, you don't have to pay sticker. Step 5. Before you sign a single thing, read the loan contract line by line. Every charge should be listed under finance charges or loan fees. If something isn't listed, it shouldn't be there. Most importantly, confirm there's no prepayment penalty. This is the piece that makes the whole strategy work. Step 6. Sign the loan, drive the car home, and pay off the balance within the first week. You finance the vehicle. Technically, it wasn't for long, but you did finance it. You got the financing buyer price, you dodged the financing paradox, and you paid it off before any meaningful interest kicked in. The whole play comes down to two things: no origination fee and no prepayment penalty. If either one exists, the math shifts and you'd need to calculate whether the savings on the sticker price outweigh the cost of that fee. In most cases, the savings still win, but run the numbers. That's always the right call. The showroom floor feels like the real fight, the tension, the back and forth, the let me check with my manager routine. But it's not where the real money moves. The finance manager's office is. And most buyers walk in there thinking the hard part is behind them. Guard down, pen ready. That's exactly what the dealership is counting on. Mitchell didn't see it. He negotiated a killer price on the surface and handed most of it back in the room behind the showroom. Jordan saw even less. He announced cash, lost his leverage before the conversation even began, and paid $2,600 more for the same car sitting in his neighbor's driveway. Now you know every layer, every margin, and the exact playbook to use all of it to your advantage. If this changed how you'll walk into your next dealership, subscribe and turn on notifications. We break down the invisible math behind every financial decision that quietly takes your money.